Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. FPL Consult here, and today we're going to take a look at my Game Week 8 team selection. So the wild card is active. It was active since Sunday after the Brentford versus Nottingham Forest game, and I'm going to show you guys in this video the draft that I am currently on. Stay tuned for the Game Week 8 deadline stream, of course, 3 hours for the deadline where I will reveal my final team, but I'm going to show you guys what team I'm on currently, and hopefully you guys do enjoy this video. Of course, if you do, please give it a like and also subscribe as well if you are new around here. So let's dive straight into this draft, and just to mention, my team value for this draft is not very high. It's 99.8, and of course I only have 0.3 million in the bank, as you guys can see. So something that I've struggled with this season is actually team value. I know 99.8 plus 0.3 is only 100.1 million, 100.1 million, and honestly speaking, I know that is pretty low, but the thing is, I did not bring in any Spurs players early. I also didn't bring in players like Kieran Trippier who rose in price. I actually stuck with a lot of players that dropped in price as well. So I am struggling a little bit with team value. So the draft that I am able to go into Game Week 8 with, even though I am on a wild card, may not be the strongest wild card you'll see, but I am dealt with the current situation, so I will make the most out of it, and try to build the best draft for my team in Game Week 8. Right, so we're going to start in goal with Matt Turner. Now he's 4.0 million. As I mentioned already, I don't really have much money to spare. So I am, of course, still going to go with the cheapest playing keeper in Matt Turner, right? And I think he plays Crystal Palace away, which is definitely a fixture where I can see him keeping a clean sheet. And of course, Nottingham Forest do look like a decent side in terms of the expected goals conceded numbers. They have improved a lot from last season, so they're no longer the whipping boys that we knew. And they very well can potentially keep a clean sheet. Matt Turner has already kept a couple this season as well. Right now, in the back line, this back three, I have gone with Dan Burn, Udogie, and Matty Cash. Now, Dan Burn, of course, he is the cheapest playing Newcastle defender that's probably nailed to start. I think there was a little bit of doubt before this as to whether Lewis Hall was going to come in, when Champions League kicks in, and they have to rotate some players, but now it seems like Dan Burn is just playing every single game. So I would say that he is pretty much 99% nailed, right? And I feel confident enough to go for him. 4.5 million entry into that Newcastle defense, and he does have that bullet hitter in him as well. He just scored a header against PSG, also scored in game week 7 as well. So what's not to like about Dan Burn, right? So next up we have Udogie. So Udogie plays Luton away. Now of course he is the cheaper asset to own as compared to Pedro Porro. Now if I had I do have 0.3 million in the bank, right? But if I didn't have any budget constraints, I would go for Pedro Porro. I kept 0.3 million in the bank instead because I do plan to use that money to upgrade other areas with my transfer plans moving forward. So because of that, I need to have that 0.3 million in the bank to prepare myself for those moves, and can't afford to do Udogie to Pedro Porro. But for those of you guys who prefer to go for Pedro Porro, I actually think that is a good move, because Pedro Porro has better numbers than Udogie as well. Right, so Luton away from him, I definitely think I can keep a clean sheet and get attacking returns as well. And then for Matty Cash, plays Wolves away, and I do feel like he is actually the best defensive asset to own now, aside from Kieran Trippier, because he is so attacking. Scored quite a number of goals this season already, and we know that he likes to bomb up the wings as well. So he plays Wolves away. He's an easy hold for the next couple of game weeks as well. So we're going with Matty Cash here, and I foresee that he will be someone that is going to be in a lot of people's Game Week 8 wildcard drafts, or even if you're not on a wildcard, you'll probably be looking to bring him in as well. So now let's take a look at the midfielders. So in midfield, I've gone with James Ward-Prowse, Mohamed Salah, the Spurs double up of Son and Maddison, and Moussa Diaby, who is currently yellow flagged. So I'll go through them one by one, and don't worry, I will definitely get to Moussa Diaby, who I know is a risk going into Game Week 8. Right, so let's talk about the most expensive player first. Mohamed Salah is at 12.6 million. I definitely want to have him in my Game Week 8 wildcard. He's the most nailed Liverpool attacker. There's also a potential consideration to actually double up on Liverpool attackers, but for the time being, at least in Game Week 8, I don't see a real need to go with them now. If I do want to bring another Liverpool attacker, I think I can consider that moving forward. But in Game Week 8, I would say that Salah is enough for my team. He's definitely going to be a captain option in a couple of game weeks moving forward as well. On penalties, etc., we know with Mohamed Salah what kind of an asset he is. Just one thing I would say is that he's a little bit less of a goal threat this season. He's more of a creative outlet this season, and we've seen that in his numbers. His XG numbers has gone down, his XA numbers have gone up across as compared to the other seasons. So he is changing his role a little bit, but in terms of him just as an FPL asset and what he offers from a Liverpool attacking side, they just look like they are in flowing football when it comes to the attack. I just feel like Mohamed Salah is someone we have to have in our drafts. Right, so next up, we're going to go and talk about the Spurs attackers here. So Son and Maddison, I've gone with both of them, and I have the captain's armband on Son for the time being. Now, as of recording, we have just seen Son pictured in training, so that already gives me confidence that he is back up to a certain level of fitness. And on top of that, Manor Solomon has now been reported to have picked up a meniscus tear, and basically what that means is that there are reports that are ruling him out for 2 to 3 months. So essentially, Richarlison, Maddison, and Son, as well as Kulusevski, of course, on the right wing. These are the attackers that are left that I would say are first team level for Spurs. I don't see anyone else that they would bring in for any of these players. So let's say they want to sub Son out early, which was actually one of my considerations, and potentially not going for Son, is that he has been subbed out quite early the past few game weeks, but now that Manor Solomon is not fit to play, Richarlison is probably going to start on the left, Son is going to start up front. On the right, we're going to see Kulusevski. Right behind Son in the number 10 role, it's going to be Maddison. So there really isn't any substitutes for all these positions. I mean, Richarlison can play at number 9, but who's going to play on the left as well, right? If let's say they take Son off, Richarlison will move to the front, and there's no one to replace him thereafter. So that's why it gives me kind of a little bit more confidence that Son's minutes are going to rise higher. At least for this Luton game, I would foresee him getting a little bit more than whatever he got against Liverpool as well in game week 7. So there we go. I have Son at the time being. He's in training. I feel like he will be fit enough to start. So barring any major changes, I will still probably have him in my team, and he's going to be my captain. Right now, next up, let's talk about James Ward-Prowse. Now, as I mentioned, don't have a lot of money. So I've been saying that I don't have a lot of money, but I think James Ward-Prowse, this may be a little bit of a shot in the dark, but I do feel like James Ward-Prowse may potentially be a better asset to own than Jarrod Bowen. Now, this may come back and bite me, but I simply think this is the case because of James Ward-Prowse's role. I actually feel like at 6.3 million, even though Jarrod Bowen is 7.1 million and potentially more of a goal threat, I actually feel like James Ward-Prowse has more routes to points. He's on all set pieces. He's actually really high in terms of baseline bonus points as well. He actually picked up a bonus point in game week 7 without getting any returns at all. Just based on the amount of chances he created, his expected assist was actually 1.41. So really high numbers for him, and that's kind of why he picked up that one bonus point. So doing nothing, no returns, and he gets a bonus points. You can imagine his baseline bonus points and the potential for him to haul when he does get a return, right? So I feel like that's another reason why I prefer James Ward-Prowse. And of course, he's no longer kind of a defensive midfielder for West Ham. His role is a little bit more attacking of sorts. He definitely has that freedom to roam forward a little bit and get those attacking returns. We did see him score a couple of goals already this season, and let's not forget that he is, to be fair, the best free kick taker in the world. So he has yet to whip in one of those free kicks, one of those curlers that we're so used to seeing from James Ward-Prowse. Now, this is not me trying to comfort myself that I don't have enough money to go for Jarrod Bowen, but this is me, honestly speaking, feeling like James Ward-Prowse is a better asset to own than Jarrod Bowen. Alright, so we'll see whether that comes back to bite me. That is definitely a strong opinion to hold. I know most of you guys may not agree with that, but that is where I am at this point in time in terms of the Jarrod Bowen versus James Ward-Prowse debate. Right now, next up we have Moussa Diaby. He's yellow flag. So as I mentioned, I will discuss a little bit about him for now. The thing is, I actually rate Musa Diaby as a player even more than I rate Ollie Watkins. Now, I know Ollie Watkins just came off 3 goals and 2 assists, but to be fair, I wasn't very convinced of his performances in the earlier game weeks as well. He's been getting returns every game, almost every game week. The first 5 game weeks, I think he picked up assists consistently. But his goal threat just wasn't there in the first couple of game weeks. And Musa Diaby is just a player that really passes the eye test. Musa Diaby actually got a 12-point haul, I think, in game week 2 or game week 3. So in general, I actually rated Diaby as a player, and I already wanted to have Diaby more than I wanted Watkins. If all of them were fit, and bar the game week 7 result, if I had to choose one attacker to own from Aston Villa, it would actually be Musa Diaby, right? So in this case, I still want him in my team. I will hope that Unai Emery will come out before the deadline to say in his press conference that Musa Diaby is fit. I mean, that is my hope, right? But if he's not fit, I'm going to show you guys an alternative draft later on towards the end of the video for the situation where we get confirmation Musa Diaby is out for game week 8. And of course, there is a potential that I can just bench him and wait till he recovers after the international break. So I will discuss that later on towards the end of the video as well. So there we go. This for now is the 5 midfielders, or are the 5 midfielders that are currently in my game week 5 draft. So up front, we're going to go with Erling Haaland and Ollie Watkins. Now, I know earlier in the week, I put out a no Haaland draft that I was very, very tempted by. And I still do feel at this point that it is fair to consider going without Haaland because of the points that I raised in that video, where you may not want to be captaining him most weeks. And in that sense, maybe you don't really need him. But that's it. Because of the current structure of my team, as well as the players that I feel I'm compromising on, I'm okay to take those compromises. So therefore, I still think like having him in the draft is not too much of a detriment in terms of the overall structure and the players that I can go for. I still can get Watkins, Salah, Son, Madison, and Haaland, of course, all in one draft. So I'm not too worried about that. And I'm okay to go with Dan Burn instead of Trippier. Of course, that is one of the major advantages of going without Haaland, that you can upgrade Dan Burn to Trippier, etc. But I think like having Haaland in this draft is not making it look too bad at all. So I'm going to stick with Haaland, and it will save me a future transfer moving forward where I don't need to bring him in. Now, as for the second striker, I've gone with Ollie Watkins instead of Julian Alvarez. Now, I definitely did consider swapping these two strikers, and I've had Alvarez in the draft a couple of times. I had Watkins in as well. Now, Watkins is in for the time being, and that's because Musa Diaby is currently yellow flagged, and I still do want an Aston Villa attacker in my team. So that's why he's in, but I definitely do get the appeal of Julian Alvarez, and in terms of fixtures, I definitely favour the Aston Villa ones. But that said, Julian Alvarez plays for Man City, and they can definitely score in any of those tough fixtures as well. And he's in a hot vein of form, right? He just scored 1 goal and 1 assist after coming off the bench against Leipzig. So I do want to try and fit him in as well, so he will be in the alternative draft that we're going to see towards the end of the video. But for the time being, it's Erling Haaland and Ollie Watkins here. And let's talk about the players on the bench. So I have Areola, Archer, Lamptey, and Taylor. Now, this is a very thin bench, right? Definitely, I feel like the bench cover is not great. Areola is a 4.2 million keeper, but he will be coming into the starting 11 after game week 8 when West Ham's fixtures actually pick up. So he's just waiting on the bench to come on once the fixtures turn. As for the rest, I did mention it is a very thin bench. Archer, 4.5 million. At least he's a starting forward for Sheffield United. And honestly speaking, I do understand that if I do have to start him this game week and bench Diaby instead, if I want to keep Diaby, that's not the worst fixture in the world. It's also not the best thing to be starting a Sheffield United attacker, but that's just the state of my team value where I don't have so much as well. Right. In defense, for the bench options there, I have Lamptey and Taylor. Now, the reason why I've gone with both of them, it allows me to keep 0.3 in the bank for future transfers, but both of them I feel are decent assets to own in game week 8 or at least for the next couple of game weeks. Lamptey is here because Estupiñán is out for 1 month, and that also means that Lamptey is the next best alternative for that left back spot. He is quite attacking as well, and you would think that he would be starting in place of Estupiñán for the next couple of game weeks. So at least until game week 10, which is projected when around the time when Estupiñán will come back. If Estupiñán is not back by then, Lamptey can just be a starting player for me. So that is fine. And he will be just a bench option in general. So I'm not going to think too much about that. And just have him on the bench, ready to come on if I need him. And then for Charlie Taylor, 3.9 million, I prefer him over Kabore for the upcoming fixtures. Burnley's fixtures moving forward are better than Kabore. And honestly, I don't see too much of a difference going for Taylor or Kabore as well. So we're going to go with Taylor here and save at 0.1. Now I have 0.3 million in the bank. Future transfers wise, I do plan to sell Son or Maddison in game week 10 to bring in an Arsenal attacker and potentially also make way for a Brighton attacker as well. Right, so those are the plans for this particular team that I have in game week 8. I know this is not the strongest game week 8 wildcard, but based on my team value, this is what it allows me to do. If I had more money, what would I do? I would upgrade either Lamptey or Taylor on the bench to a better fourth defender, possibly a Crystal Palace defender. Maybe Gehi at 4.5 million is more reachable for those of you guys with more team value. If not, I think Joachim Andersen is perfectly fine as well. Now, let's talk about the possibility of Diaby not being fit for game week 8 and what I would do in that situation. So let's say Moussa Diaby is confirmed to be out for game week 8, then I think I will have to remove him from my team if I don't want to start Archer in place of him and bench him, right? I will have to remove him from my team, and therefore I can afford Julian Alvarez. Now, this would mean that I upgrade Archer to Julian Alvarez, of course, with the new money. But that said, downgrading Diaby to Chukwuemeka, who's last on the bench right now and is the cheapest 4.3 million midfielder at the time of recording, and of course there is a chance he may start regularly for Chelsea once he's back fit, which should be soon. But once again, we take a look at the bench and I see Lamptey, Taylor and Chukwuemeka is just not great at all. There's a very, very thin bench. But that said, I do get all the attackers that I want in my Game Week 8 draft. Salah, Son, Maddison, Ward-Prowse, Alvarez, Haaland, Watkins, and the backline is fine as well. Burn, Udogie, Cash, and Turner on the bench. Of course, Areola would be the first team keeper once the West Ham's fixtures pick up. So, I don't mind this team. Just that the team value is where I'm struggling a little bit, and that's why the bench is so thin, right? So in terms of bench cover, I'm really taking a risk here if I go with this draft. I definitely understand the risks involved, and I will have to be very lucky that any of these players don't get injured over the international break as well. But yeah, so this is a possible alternative that I'm considering, but of course I will continue to tweak and alter the draft based on the press conferences that we get or the news that we get about certain players as well. So there we go. This is the alternative draft. The previous draft that you saw a couple of, the previous section is likely the draft that I prefer to go with, and possibly the one that I will still go with if Diaby is not fit. If we do get a timeline as to maybe after the international break, Diaby will be back, maybe I go with that draft as well. But let me know what you guys think of this draft and the previous draft as well. And as of course, do bear in mind that team value is not very high, so I have to work with the budget that I have. But there we go. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Of course, this is a slightly longer video, but I wanted to cover at least my thinking behind most of these players, and hopefully it was useful for you as well. Do subscribe, do like, and I'll catch you guys as always 3 hours before the deadline on Saturday morning. Bye bye.